Hello everyone, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly. Normally across from me in the other chair is my amazing co-host and producer Andrew McKenzie. Hasn't 2022 been really interesting? We started this podcast officially. We had our first introduction launch on the 1st of May, and then we launched our first podcast with our first guest sort of in June. And 6 months have passed. So we're going to do this. This will be the last podcast for 2022. And because of that, we're going to call this 2022 / a year in review. It's not really a whole year, but it is a 2022 year in review. We've done a lot of stuff. We've had a lot of amazing conversations with some incredibly cool people. A lot of laughs, a few inappropriate comments, and just some really cool things, which have been, for me, really, really interesting. So Andrew and I are just going to film this. It's all going to be completely off the cuff. This podcast will be a bit shorter than all our normal podcasts. We're going to throw to some videos with some previous guests that we've talked about. And you guys will be in for a real treat. Before we start, I want to do two things. First thing I want to do is I want to shout out to the Northland Artists Conversation team. I want to thank producer Andrew, editor Rocky. These guys have definitely done the hard slog this year. They're in doing the filming, the editing. What they do is amazing, and I cannot thank them enough. We've also got Marino Begman, who does all of the communications. So any guest that is sat in that chair has more often than not talked with Marino via email or text, and she's kind of lined all of the guests up for us, so we've kind of had a steady stream of guests, which has been amazing. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank Catherine Kat Tasker. In the early days with the social media, she kind of helped the podcast find the social media voice, which is really, really cool. So, Kat, thank you very much. It is really, really appreciated. So, today is going to be a bit different. It'll be shorter. We're going to have a bit of fun. It's going to be me sort of talking about some of the more interesting podcasts and interesting guests that we've had, and also from conversations I've had with the team, some of the stuff that, guess that we found really, really interesting because, it's been an interesting year. So I'm going to throw, and I'm going to shift, and we're going to go to my camera now. The second thing I want to do before we crack on with all of this is, if you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure to like, share, subscribe. And if you're listening to this via audio, please add Northland Artists Conversation as one of your preferred podcasts. Those sorts of things really help us a lot, and they're very, very quick. For you, the listener reviewer, what it means is that you guys will get notifications as to when those podcasts come out. Now, on Facebook and Instagram, we do posts every Tuesday, letting you know who's coming up, and then every Thursday, we also do a release of the actual podcasts themselves. So, last week was June Pittman Hayes, just before Christmas. Super cool, amazingly talented woman, and just multifaceted as well. But let's go right back, and I mean right back. Let's go back to May the 1st. Andrew and I and editor Rocky, we're all getting ready to put out the first podcast. And it's kind of one of those really interesting times. What a lot of people won't really know is that 6 months prior, we'd all done just a ton of work in the background. And, we will have a short little clip of Andrew and I sort of interacting and talking a little bit about it. Both trying to be as comfortable as we possibly can in front of the camera. It doesn't always come off that way, but definitely, good for a first laugh. So check this out. My name is Mark Kelly. My background is I have been an actor, a musician. I've done some directing and some screenwriting. And I the reason I wanted to do this is because this is an opportunity for me to give back, to actually connect with people and learn more about things. Now, Andrew, you obviously have your own background as well. What is your journey
Yeah, for sure. So I've been doing music pretty much all of my life. I work with my own local hip hop collective called OBC. I also work with a wider collective called Resolute Music Collective, and I've also in 2016 I started Low Budget Brotherhood, which is like a initiative for local artists and artists across the country to kind of get a leg up through promotion and music videos and stuff like that. So.
Helping people out is kind of really what you've been doing.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say.
Yeah, and that's where we are with this podcast. Now, there's also a third member. There is a third member of the team that you're never going to see in front of the camera, but he is currently behind the scenes, making sure that this is all going smoothly. Now, Andrew, you introduced me to this person, so
yes.
It seems appropriate that you sort of talk about him.
Yeah, so it's my good friend Rocky Stevenson. He worked with me at Low Budget Brotherhood, primarily as a cameraman initially, but kind of worked his way into directing and editing as well, which is really cool. Took a lot of the load off me, and so he's really good at what he does as well. So.
Now, Rocky, it would be fair to say Rocky's probably got more of a technical background, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So between myself, Andrew, and Rocky, who is behind the camera at the moment, this is going to be an amazing journey, and I am looking forward to sharing it all with you. So as you can see there, everyone, very, very cool. It's only a little bit, it's not too long, but you can see sort of all the work that had been put into getting things sorted. And then that leads me to my first guest. Now, Aki Fukuoka, man, wow. When we started doing this podcast and coming up with different ideas about who we wanted, we actually had a bit of a list as to, we were like, this person would be cool, this person would be cool, this person would be cool. Aki kind of got in touch with us and said, yes, I would love to be part of it. Now, how that came about is there was an article in the Northern Advocate with a photo of myself and producer Andrew smiling like an idiot. We'll insert the photo somewhere around there. It's always good for a laugh. And she reached out to us and she said, yeah, I'd love to get involved. And, she came in, she sat down, and she was so cool. She came in, she sat and talked with us before we started filming, and she was like super nervous. And she was like, I'm shy and I don't really have much to say. And boy, did she have a lot to say. She was so cool. And talking with her, about how she got involved in the series of books that she illustrates, which is the Billy B. Brown series, is really, really fascinating. So we're going to throw to another clip now. Make sure you check this out. This is hilarious.
The editor did tell me later when they approached me, they did approach another illustrator. Mm-hmm. And they were testing us both out, which I think happens quite often when they are, trying out different illustrators.
Yeah, sure.
So they said, are you interested?
Mm-hmm.
It's based on us, a girl aged around 7. She's a feisty personality. Can you just come up with some character designs? And I was like so into it. I think I drew like 10 girls and just sent it back really quickly, and they're like, oh yeah, and they just kept coming back to me, and I just kept on sending it in. And later the editor told me like it was your passion.
Now there's a really interesting process behind that, isn't there? Because we've had a look before we sort of started in here. You were sort of very gracious enough to sort of show me the evolution of Billy B. Brown, and it's not something where you're just sitting down and just scribbling out anything. There's a real evolution. Like you start off here and you may end up all the way over here with something different, because you'll draw something and then you'll submit it.
Yes.
And then there'll be refinements along the way, and then it will kind of go backwards and forwards. How many iterations or versions of Billy B. Brown do you think you went through before you got to the one that, people know?
At least 50.
50?
At least 50.
50 versions?
At least 50, yes. Different hairstyles, I'm sure your wonderful people put it on the screen now, but I'll share you the illustrations later.
That's
amazing.
Share
the viewers, yes.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so I think, about 50, and maybe took about a month or two to finalize on the design.
Yeah.
So it was between the editor and the author, Sally Rippon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure she had a big say in what what the character looked like too. The funny thing was they didn't know. I mean, maybe they could tell by my name, but they didn't know I was Japanese. They didn't tell me, and they didn't know what I looked like.
Sure. Oh,
This was
yeah.
before Facebook, guys.
Before Facebook and Instagram, yep.
So
Yep.
they didn't know what I looked like, and this was published 10 years ago. And when I went to Australia that following year for some book signing tours,
Yeah.
they saw me and they told me that I look exactly like Billy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently I did back then. So they're
sort of
like
channeling a bit of yourself
yeah.
in there, yeah.
And they were like, wow. And a lot of the kids coming up to me, they were like, oh, did you just draw yourself? And I was like, I wish it was that easy, because I drew like 50 different girls, I actually didn't want Billy to have black hair. I remember that for
Yeah.
a lot of the initial sketches, maybe for the first 30 or 40 girls, I just always did the typical blonde hair or the red hair, the feisty
right,
girl.
yeah. Feisty redhead, yeah.
And I think it was like the last alteration that were made was the editor said, like, let's make her hair black.
As with everything that the Northland Artists Conversation has done, everyone has contributed. And our second guest was actually a contributor. His name was Fox Levine. And Fox is now living in Wellington. He is studying the arts. So, Fox, I see you, mate. I hope you're doing well. I know you had your birthday in December, and like a useless person, I forgot to send you a happy birthday, so happy birthday for December. Fox actually did all of the artwork for the intro, and I'll throw a picture up here of the artwork that Fox actually did. I approached him, I knew him outside of the podcast, and I said, hey, I kind of like your style. It's kind of cool. And I gave him some ideas and concepts, and we kind of went backwards and forwards. And he came up with, kind of a wonderful idea, which editor Rocky was then able to take and extrapolate out into the intro that you see today. But the original image was courtesy of Fox. So that was super cool. Hearing Fox talk about his time growing up as a high school student in the States was amazing. We're going to throw to another clip. So just have a listen to this. Absolute gold. So check this out.
High school itself was really rough for me, as it is for a lot of people, for a lot of reasons.
It wasn't easy on me.
And I'm grateful for the teachers I had too, because they really helped me through it.
Yep.
And in high school, because it was such a, so I went to a private school, and it was kind of by the skin of my parents' teeth, because I grew up rurally. I grew up on a farm in the middle of rural Virginia.
Yep.
Charlottesville being the nearest town. The public school in that district was, let's just say it would have been really rough on me.
Okay. Yeah.
And so my folks kind of picked up on that initially, and were like, well, let's see what we can swing in town.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm glad that I did, because it's called Renaissance School, and it's called Renaissance School because there are multiple tracks. If I'm remembering this right, you can pick that. I'm not going to remember the names of the people they chose, but it was different sort of like Renaissance men.
Oh, sure. Yep.
To either focus on heavily on the sciences, on the arts, or just general track. I, of course, immediately jumped at the please let me focus heavily on the arts. And it basically lets you replace a math class with a science class. No, not at all. Help. Math or science class with an art class. And I was like, I don't do math at all. I don't do math at all. I don't know how to do math.
Yeah.
And I would do anything to stop doing math.
Yeah.
I have no bad feelings towards science. Science is cool. But I was like, yes. And so I can take like 2, 3, maybe more art classes. And that was just what I did. I really, really dug into that.
So those were the first two guests. Very, very cool. Super fortunate. I then got to interview one of my mates, Michael Boter. Michael is one of those guys that he is super good with PR and self-promotion, and he is just always grafting and always grinding at his creative endeavor, which is writing. And he's gone from doing like reviews and books and poetry to now doing audiobooks as well. And he's got a series of books that have been picked up internationally for distribution. A dystopian teen series, I believe. And, he's doing incredibly well. Mike's one of those guys that... So, I for anyone that's watched the podcast, I always wear the same outfit. For those of you that listen that have no idea, I will always wear a black shirt and khaki cargo pants, cargo shorts. Reason I do that is because I'm consistent and I look boring, and I allow the guest and whatever they're wearing to be more of the standout. Mike's one of those guys, loud shirts, big bright bold colours, and it really matches his personality. He was talking about his latest book that was coming out, which was The Devil Made Me Do It, which is a series of what are they, like short stories, horror short stories. And he released it. He got to talk. He got to do a couple of events for Fringe Festival as well, and super cool. So we're going to cut to another clip now of Mike talking about the book The Devil Made Me Do It. And then obviously you've got your latest book, The Devil Took Her. Now, I am a huge horror fan. Not so much Stephen King, but definitely Dean Koontz. I read Phantoms in one day. I was living in Masterton, working at McDonald's, and I'd picked up Phantoms from the library because a friend of mine had told me that it was a really, really good Dean Koontz book and I should read it. Sat down and read it before work. Called work on the landline phone and said, I'm not going to be in, I'm sick, and then finished that book. I think I started at like 8 in the morning and finished at like 10 at night. So horror, yes, love horror. So tell us about The Devil Took Her.
So I was on Radio New Zealand, I think 2 Sundays ago, and I had to explain to Lynn Freeman on Standing Room Only why make the transition from this genre called literary fiction over to horror.
Yeah, okay.
Now, last night I was listening to an inspirational Seth Godin audiobook about marketing your creativity.
Yeah.
And he was saying you should make an assertion with your artistic, with your artwork. So here it goes. My assertion is that this is some of the highest quality writing that you can get with horror, because often horror can be schlocky and you're just trying to press the reader's buttons with lots of blood and guts and gore.
Yeah.
There's really high quality stuff with really well drawn characters with really 2022 things going on in their lives. Lots of lived experience in there, so real relatable things, real relatable characters, lots of ethnic diversity, lots of realistic cultures in there, people talking in realistic ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, my point being, so I've gone from hard-hitting, gritty stories about realistic conflicts. I've just added a little bit of flavouring, a little bit of food colouring, a little dash of realistic horror.
One of the organisations that proudly supports the Northland Artists Conversation is Creative Northland. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you guys about it. Creative Northland have been absolutely vital in helping this project get off the ground through its infancy and all the way through to where we are now. We couldn't have done what we've done without their assistance. What we suggest is that if you're a creative person and you haven't heard of Creative Northland, we highly recommend that you reach out to them. Creative Northland, simply do a Google search. They're the top result. These guys are wonderful. They're all creatives in their own way, and they're all very, very well respected throughout the industry that they work in. They're very hardworking, absolutely committed and dedicated to helping the creative people throughout Northland, whether it be through simple things like starting up a project, all the way through to putting on like an exhibition, for example, all the way through to working out how they can start turning what they do into a business. It's all free advice. They give really, really good guidelines and helpful assistance to make sure that you, as a creative, are able to get the most out of what you do. Creative Northland, highly recommend them. Check them out. And that's one of the things with Mike. Whenever you watch him, whenever you talk with him in person, passion, absolute passion come through. You know, as I said, I'm not going to be able to cover everyone. I'm not. We've had so many amazing guests. So Cheryl Mai. I'm actually going to go to Cheryl next. Now, Cheryl was really interesting. So I'm going to share the story with everyone because I think it's a really interesting story and really fascinating. So I had originally approached Cheryl early on. Earlier, I spoke about the list of people that I wanted to get. She was always on the list, kind of near the top. I sent her executive assistant, personal assistant. I think it's executive assistant, an email saying, "Hey, this is who I am. Blah 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 blah. This is what we do," and promptly heard nothing back, which was fine. I get it. I understand. And Olivia Garalja from Creative Northland. We'll throw the Creative Northland logo just up here. And also a photo of Olivia as well. She was wonderful enough and was able to facilitate Cheryl coming in and sitting down and having a talk with us. Now, every single person that comes in the studio, every guest will get emailed a form, and that form is 4 pages long, and it's a bit of an introduction about the podcast. There's 2 pages of like pre-interview questionnaires where they sort of fill out their basic information. They talk a little bit about their history, talk a little bit about their influences, talk a little bit about what got them into their chosen creative endeavour, and a little bit about what they've got coming up. And then the last page we have is the artist's sign-off form. So essentially that sign-off form gives us consent to be able to use their images on YouTube and social media accordingly. Cheryl didn't fill it out, which was hilarious, because the email from her executive assistant was something along the lines of Cheryl doesn't feel that she's creative at all. And I was like, oh, okay. So I promptly spent 3 hours of my time sitting down and doing a bit of research on Cheryl Mai. And this was during work time. Sorry, my boss at the time. But yeah, so I sat down, did some research, and holy cow, who knew? You know, Cheryl had done gardening videos. Cheryl has been a columnist. So yeah, creative. She just didn't even know it. And also known as the Dancing Mare. And we're going to find that photo and throw that up in there as well, because that's absolutely hilarious. Anyone that I sort of sit down and talk with, we talk beforehand, and I have the opportunity to sort of put them at ease if there's any nerves or anxiousness going on. Gives me an opportunity to build a rapport and try and connect with the guest, because for a lot of people, sitting down in the chair can be quite intimidating. But for me, the mayor at the time was coming in to sit down with me, and I was the one that was nervous. I was the one that had a bit of anxiousness, because this was the mayor, and she had made it publicly known at that point that she wasn't going to run again. And boy, I tell you what, she did not hold back. There was some amazing gold that came out of that podcast. And it's funny, about a week after that podcast dropped, I got I got an email from her sister. And I called her sister. I went, oh, hey, thanks very much. It's really nice to hear from you. And she was like, yeah, I'm the sister she talked about in the podcast. So what we're going to do is, quickly, to give everyone a bit of context, we're going to cut to Cheryl, who I think at this point is living in Australia and then flies back to New Zealand to attend her sister's wedding. So check this clip out. So you catch up with the old flame and you've got your degree. Where to from there?
Well, I explored Australia for a while, and then my sister back home here in New Zealand decided to get married. So, and she asked me to be her bridesmaid, as sisters do. Yep. So I came home, and that was the end of my world trip. At that stage was I got to Australia, yay! And I did quite a bit of touring around Australia, and worked on prawn trawlers and boats and things like that. So it was a kind of a cool experience in my life.
That is see, I mean, all of this stuff is just it's fascinating because, you know, when you think of someone that sort of had the esteemed career that you've had, I wouldn't instantly go, oh, no, she worked on boats for a little while. Sure, why not? I think we've had someone else on the show who worked on the boats for a little while. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, one particular boat I jumped off of because the skipper of the boat believed he had skipper's rights, and he didn't. So that literally was. We got close enough to shore, and I just jumped overboard and swam ashore because it was not a pleasant time.
Okay, so we're not even talking like docking. We're just like, I can see land. I'm off.
We'd anchored. You know, we'd done they call them shots when you're going out and doing the prawn trawling. So you drag the cages behind the boat trawling, and you lift them up and you sort them all the gear, and then sometimes they go away for weeks at a time. I was lucky in that it was only kind of 2 or 3 nights, I think it was, and when we got back close enough to shore and anchored, that was when I literally
You were
jumped.
just out of it. You're just like, no, I'm not
Men,
doing this anymore.
The bastards.
Yes, how dare they? So as you can see, Cheryl has this sister that she decides to leave Australia for and come back. And her sister had said to me, you know what? Some of those stories I'd never heard before. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. So cool. You know, and that was one of the sort of overarching themes that kind of came through is like, even friends that I knew, like Michael Boda, who had been on the podcast, and some of our other guests who would be on later on, you know, I was always finding out new things about them. And these are people that I'd known for like 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And you just learn new stuff. And it was so amazing. And it was just so incredibly cool and refreshing. So Cheryl was kind of my first real nervous podcast. Excuse me. You know, and then, man, where did we go to from there? We just had some really cool different people that we talked with. We got to sort of about September, October. And, you know, around that time, I guess we had the elections come out. Excuse me. I'm going to actually have a cough. You know, it's hard talking down the camera. And these things happen. It's, you know, I expect producer Andrew to leave this all in because, you know, there's some times where you've just got a cough. You know, so elections were coming out. Things were good. They were looking interesting. And one of the interesting things about the podcast is that we haven't had just your traditional creatives on. And Z Tana from Palette Wholesome Collective, he put his hand up and said, yeah, Murray, I'd love to be in. I'd love to come on board and sit down and talk. And that was cool because when he came in and sat down, he hadn't announced that he was going to run for office. Now, that part of things is by the by. It's actually not. We got him in because of the incredibly original and unique things he does with food. And it's funny, he talks about his time in Queenstown, Wanaka area, where he made food with Reese Witherspoon. So we're going to throw to another clip of him talking about his time and his meeting with Reese Witherspoon. Hilarious. Check it out.
So we ended up moving to Queenstown.
Very nice.
And Todd had already lived in Queenstown for a couple of years prior to moving up to far north Queensland.
Yeah.
So he already had in his mind what he kind of thought it was going to be like because he'd been there before.
Yeah, of course.
He'd already lived it. And he kind of explained it to me. And when we got there, I was like, this is awesome. We had a really good time while we lived there. And that was for about 2 years that we were there. And I landed a job working as the head chef for Aroha, which is, I think it's like New Zealand's number 2 retreat, wellness retreat.
Okay, yeah.
While I was working there, actually, we had, I think during the filming of, I can't remember the name of the movie off the top of my head, but Oprah, Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, Chris Pine as well. Yes, I know the film.
Wrinkle in Time.
That's the one.
Yeah,
Wrinkle
so they
in
were
Time.
filming that
Thanking
not
you.
too far away from us
Yeah.
where we were in Glenorchy.
Yeah.
And so Reese Witherspoon, Oprah, and me.
Mindy Kaling?
Mindy Kaling.
That's
yeah,
one.
So
Yeah.
Mindy Kaling and Reese Witherspoon flew into our retreat.
Wow.
And spent a day with us, and we got to cook with them and talk with them. And they did a yoga session, did a spa session, massage and stuff. And I was like, "What the? Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm living it. I'm finally in the place where I'm.
This is it. The dream. It's all come true.
It is. I'm creating food. I'm using food from the land. It was predominantly vegan. Everything was grown on site.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in Glenorchy. You're not going to be able to just pop to the shops every so often to pick up.
It's not a quick trip down to the pack and save.
It's not. No, exactly.
No,
exactly. So we had to kind of make do with what we had. The gardening team were amazing.
Yeah.
Our kitchen team were fantastic, and we all worked in harmony together to create just amazing produce.
So that story was kind of indicative of all of Z's conversations. Super cool, super mellow, super chill, and a lot of fun. He he announced his candidacy officially on the podcast. For us, it was a huge scoop. It was so cool. I'd never been in that position to have a first, a get, if you will. I think that's what they call them. So to actually have that was just incredibly exciting. And then who else? Man, I'm honestly, I'm going to go through so many different people, and I'm just going to forget so many. So, like I said, apologize in advance. As a team, we kind of decided, well, hey, why don't we sit down and interview ourselves? I mean, why not? We're all creatives, and producer Andrew he does hip hop, and he's done some. He's had his own production company, and he's done filming. Marina, who does the communications, she's a writer. Editor Rocky, he is an editor as well, and a bit of a drawer, and by all accounts, not a bad gamer. And Kat Tasker is, she dances, she sings, she acts. She's got, she works at Forum North. Hugely talented individual. So I thought, well, why don't we get one of our own in? And we had Marino come in and sit down. And I've known Marino since December 2021. And we met, and we just got on like a house on fire straight away. She was super cool. She thought I was super cool. I have no idea why. And we just talked, and we got on, and it was amazing. So having her come in and sit down, and the opportunity for not only myself, but for the wider community to learn about her, for me, was just amazing. So cool. She talks about, this one story that really sticks out in my head. She talks about living in Pakuranga in Auckland, and having this pseudonym. Now, I can't remember the name of the pseudonym, but she talks about it, the name coming up at dinner time. So we're going to cut to that clip now, because honestly, that story is hilarious. So check this one out, guys. You're 16 years old.
16 years old. Decide I'm going to write a story
Starting,
about my family.
About your life and times in the
And my family.
in the house.
And I thought, and I'd worked out all the
Change
characters.
some names.
Yep, changed some names. But I thought, oh no, if I write this under my real name, all my siblings and all my family, because I have a very big extended family. Māori families are huge. So
Yes.
and I thought, oh no, they're all going to know that I wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided at 16 that I was going to come up with a non-diplume.
Yes.
So
What is a non-diplume?
It's a name that you write under that's
So
not
like
your real
like
name.
an alias, right?
Yeah, like an alias. Yeah. Lots of authors do it.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling had one when she did Fantastic Beasts and Where
Yep.
to Find Them initially. It was
Yep.
not under her name.
Correct.
She wrote under another name. I think Stephen King's done it as well.
You'll find quite a few authors do it.
Okay, yeah.
One of the authors that I currently read, he writes under 3 different non-diplumes or whatever, fake names or whatever you want to call it, depending on the style he's writing. So he has mystery,
Okay, yeah.
fiction. So under that name, he's under that genre, he's this name. Whatever other ones. I only read that one genre of his.
Right,
so
okay,
I
yep.
don't know what the other ones are.
So you figured out your non
I
de
figured
plume.
out, and you know what my non de plume was?
Go on.
It's still going to be it, so how am I going to hide anything now once
You're
I put it
not.
out here?
You're
On...
just going to throw it out. Let's just chuck it out into the universe.
Okay, it was Peyton Delaney.
Peyton
Delaney. Doesn't that sound like a really cool author's name? Peyton Delaney. And then I thought if I became a doctor, I'd be Dr. Delaney. Come on.
Which is funny because Dana Delaney played a doctor in the TV series China Beach.
Oh, I remember China Beach.
Yeah. So for Marino, to share that story, which I didn't know about, I thought was hilarious. So many kids in such a small household. What the hell? But, that's her childhood and that's what she knew. And then being called out by her parents, or her sister, or siblings. And it's just so funny. We then kind of kept moving forward. Man, I'm just trying to think. You know what? Pete O'Neill. Man, Pete O'Neill was so cool. It was he'd driven over from Dargaville. He wasn't going to be the last of our guests to drive to come in and see us as well, which is so cool. And Pete just came in. I don't think he really knew what he was in for. I'd prepped him beforehand and we sat down and talked. And, we talked about, he's a musician, he's a guitarist. And, he talked about, he's pretty open and pretty honest, talked about some of the, rock and roll lifestyle choices that some people make. It was open and honest. But, much like Michael Boda, talking about his passion, Pete was super passionate when talking about his latest music project, and such a nice guy, super cool, super chill and laid back. But when he starts talking about what he's gonna be doing with his band, unreal. Definitely, you'll see what I mean. Just check this clip out.
Well, I've got some goals with Road Dog. I've got some definite goals that because I really believe in this band. I'm not having any problem. I've always been reasonably good at going out and hustling gigs and getting, getting bookings for bands and stuff like that. But with Road Dog, it's very easy because I really believe in it. We have a lot of fun. The music's good. I believe in the songs. And I got to kind of thank Caitlin a bit for that. She really is the one that pushed me with my songwriting and gave me some confidence. And then working with the boys has given me more confidence in my songs. And so, and they're sort of getting on board getting behind it's really helped. And so I'm not having any trouble kind of getting out there and selling the band because I really believe in it, And I believe the band can do really well. But we do want to... we want to kind of do something a bit different and stay away from probably traditional, no disrespect to anyone, but I would very much like us to sort of cut our own path. I think there's some, we're looking at some new territory.
Northland Artists Conversation is proud to support 116. 116 are located on Bank Street in Whangarei, and an amazing venue that you can actually hire. If you're looking to hold an event or looking to hire a venue for a special occasion, 116 on Bank Street are an absolutely fantastic place. You can simply contact them via email off their website or through Facebook as well. 116 have had such amazing events in the past as the Whangarei Fringe Festival, and they've also held the Plunge Pop Culture Convention there as well. They also have local artists that also put performances on, as well as incoming artists that come into the region as well and want to be able to do things like have plays or perform music or any of those sorts of cool things. 116 are also home to the amazing Beagle radio station as well, which is a local initiative that is all set up with some very, very talented people that actually love what they do, and they do it all for free. So it's very, very cool. So 116 on Bank Street, proudly supported by the Northland Artists Conversation. So yeah, that was Pete, man, and Pete was cool. The as I said with Cheryl, having felt nervous about actually sitting down and talking with her. There's only been one other guest, and that other guest was just before Cheryl. No, just before Pete, sorry. And that was Lauren Roach. Now, with the podcast, we often film in advance quite a bit. Some guests want their podcast to come out at a certain time to coincide with a release. So that's really cool. We're as accommodating as we possibly can be. And that's really, really cool. You know, we're here to make all our artists look good. Lauren Roach was releasing a new book, and that book was called Mila and the Boneman. Now, it had unfortunately been pushed back, and we had originally scheduled it a couple of times, and then it was like, no, we need to reschedule here and then here again. Lauren's was one of those podcasts that I felt criminally underprepared for. Now, she is an artist. She's a writer. She's written a couple of autobiographies, and you know, she'd written everything down in the pre-interview form. So it's not like I shouldn't have been prepared. I always read through everything, and I try and make sure I've got as much information as possible. So when I'm sitting down and talking with someone across from me, I guess I'm a little bit knowledgeable. I was not prepared for Lauren. Now, I don't mean that in a negative way. I sat down, did the podcast, and it wouldn't have come across like I felt underprepared. Because my job is to make our guests feel easy and comfortable so that they can open up and share their stories. But with Lauren, I remember, we did the photos at the end, which is cool. She left. I walk all our guests to their car, thank them for coming in and sitting down with us. And I remember coming back into the studio and sitting back down in this chair with producer Andrew and editor Rocky. And the first words out of my mouth were, holy shit. Because that's what it was for me. It was one of those moments where I had never encountered someone as open and as honest as Lauren. And Lauren, I thank you very, very much for that. Just to give you guys a little bit of an idea about Lauren. Man, wow, what clips do I... You know what? She tells a story about how she stows away on a ship to America. It's a long story, really, really long. You know that she is good with words by the way she speaks about it. So we're just going to show a short bit of a clip. But this is Lauren Roach talking about her boat ride to America. I'm sorry, you're going to have to just clarify that for me. What happened at the age of 16?
I was walking in Wellington,
yes,
along the beach,
yes,
to my job in an insurance company. I became an insurance clerk
right.
for a while after cleaning the hospital.
Yep. Okay.
And there was this beautiful big red ship pulled in at the overseas terminal. It was an icebreaker called the Polar Star.
Okay.
When I was a child, Mum used to take us every now and then onto American ships when they were in port. And we thought how cool this was.
Yeah.
Well, this ship was full of Americans on its way down to Antarctica. And I met up with some of them. They were really cool guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, they went to the Antarctic and I wrote letters. And then one day the ship was back in port in an unscheduled return from the Antarctic because she'd broken down.
Okay, yep.
And I thought, I'd really like to go to America, but I've got no money. So here's the ship. So I stowed away. I hid in a space on the ship. A couple of the crewmen helped me.
Yeah.
Hid on the ship for 20 days in a fan compartment as it sailed from Wellington to Seattle.
For context, roughly what size is a fan compartment?
Well, it was right under the bridge,
yes.
and it went the width of the ship. Okay, so it was a very long space, but it was very narrow. So it was probably 5 foot. And I'm 5'5". I'm sorry, I've never got used to the metric stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm
sure.
165 centimetres.
Yeah.
Well, 55.
We'll go with that. Yeah.
So it was too narrow for me to lay flat.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So a crew member brought me a mattress, and we wedged the mattress
across the ship from bow to stern.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
So I was crunched up.
Yeah.
Also, the ceiling was too low for me to sit up properly. So for 20 days in the complete dark, I curled up on a mattress.
Yeah.
I peed in a tin. I would not poo for 21 days because I didn't want anyone having to chuck that overboard for me.
Fair enough.
So I hid on the ship.
So, yeah, that's Lauren talking about her amazing story, coming out of, straight off a boat to America, not even legal. It's very cool, very cool. One of the most fascinating podcasts I think we've done, which was really cool. Another one that I really, really liked was a guy called Joshua Menhir. When Andrew and I were sitting down snowballing all of the ideas, I was like, I don't want to do the normal stuff. I don't want to do just actors and directors and musicians. And Andrew was like, what about hip-hop artists? I was like, great. What about graffiti artists? I was like, bring it on. Tattooists, hopefully, we had a guy that we thought we had lined up this year who was a swordsmith or sword maker. But that just never eventuated. But Josh was a graffiti artist. And how did I describe? Spiritual. A very spiritual conversation. The man is amazing. He is just in touch with himself. And he talks about how he had a bit of a rough upbringing. And then, he started doing graffiti work, or I think the young kids have called it bombing, or that might have been young in the 80s, I don't know. Producer Andrew is once again laughing at me, probably for the same joke that I made during that podcast. But Josh talks about being asked to submit his work for an exhibition, and that exhibition is with the world-renowned Banksy. So we're going to throw to that clip a little bit because, honestly, that is such an amazing story. So check that out.
Anyway, I moved to the granny flat of my mum's house.
Yep.
And so I'd catch the train every day. It took about 45 minutes. And I remember sitting on the train, and I got a call from an artist in the area offering me an opportunity to be in an exhibition.
Wow.
And the exhibition actually was like all the street artists from Brisbane.
Yeah.
Like notable ones. Stencil artists and some graffiti artists, and also Banksy. So I was like,
wait,
cool.
You were put in the same category with Banksy.
Yeah.
Oh, now that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool, because obviously he's the be-all and end-all, the pinnacle, right?
I wouldn't say that, but many would. And so that many would say that almost creates him as that.
Yeah. I mean, some of the stunts that he's pulled have been absolutely amazing. Obviously the real famous one where there's a painting and it goes through a shredder and it comes out like almost sort of in strips, and there's like half a piece of art that's still intact and another part that's in strips. Sheer genius.
Yeah.
Sheer genius, which is cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now you said that at school you were also doing other art as well. So you were doing your...
Oh, right. When I said it, I got a reputation or whatever.
Oh, right.
Is that what you're pointing to? I was doing graffiti,
mm-hmm.
and I was doing that kind of stuff. But it was always weird. It was always like something completely out of the box.
Yeah.
And people would be like, oh, you're Euro. Yeah.
You're a European.
They'd be like, your style is Euro. So the word that I chose for my graffiti was Vedas.
Vedas.
Yeah. Which is the name of the Vedic literature of ancient India.
Wow.
Yeah, because Veda means truth, and I was like, that's cool. That's what I want to.
So what? Hang on, as in VADER?
VEDA.
VEDA.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Darth Vader has, Star Wars is very much based on actually the Ramayana and the I think it's the Ramayan. Anyway, won't get into that.
No,
but-
I was just about to say, let's dive down the Star Wars, because I was about to say, Darth Truth.
Yeah.
Definitely doesn't have the same ring to it.
Yeah,
The
it's
same
interesting. It's almost like
ominous tone.
yeah.
Yeah, wow, okay. So yeah, that's Josh. Super cool. Super cool. Just, and such a nice guy. So inner peace radiates from him. And that definitely comes through in the work that he does. And I'm going to get editor Andrew to throw up a photo of some of his work that he's done, because it's really amazing. You know, it's hard to believe. Hard to believe. Man, then who else did we have? Who else? You know what? Catherine Lee. Catherine Lee, for me, was very cool. You know, so we've had artists come in, and I'm going to look at the wide camera. We've had artists come in, and often this space here, and I'm pointing to the space between the two artists, between the two chairs. Well, we might put art or books or something like that. But Catherine turned up with one of those big, things that are on the ground. You pull it up and it's a banner, and you've got to stick behind and it stands up. And that was for, I'm going to go back to my camera now, and that was to promote her new book. And I was like, oh, this will be interesting. This will be really cool. And she sat down and, her whole journey was just so amazing. Her time through, traveling on a train through America. Who knew? So, we're going to cut to just a short snippet of her time going through America on a train. How does one end up unconscious in Ohio, apart from the way that some 20-somethings would do it?
Okay, I flew into Houston.
Yes.
Stayed with friends. I've got a lot of friends in the States.
Yep.
Took the train right up the middle of America to Chicago.
Oh, right, nice.
And I thought, you would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's not.
Really?
It's not. There's nothing there.
Is it just like a barren wasteland?
Yeah, and all you see is the backyards of people who can't afford to live in the nice part of town.
Wow.
Yeah, and then it was night for a lot of the time.
Okay. Is it easy to sleep on a train? I've slept on a train with a hangover, but that's...
The train was hilarious.
Okay.
We a friend of mine and I shared what they called a roomette. And which on an Amtrak train.
Is that a smaller version of a room?
Well, it's more it than room,
right?
To be honest. And
okay.
I was on the upper bunk because they turned the seats into two bunks.
Oh, okay.
So
Yep.
the back flips up.
Yep.
And you've got about that much breathing room.
Between yourself and the ceiling?
Yes.
Wow.
And I said to my friend, I can almost guarantee nobody has ever had sex up here. It was just so, you could barely turn over.
Yeah.
And we had what we called the shoilet, which was the shower.
Yeah.
But it was above the toilet, and you had to dome yourself in with a shower curtain.
Oh, right.
And then the shower came down, but you had to sit on the toilet while you were showering because it was in the way.
So there we go. I mean, how amazing. She'd never even been there before, never even been to the state, and then all of a sudden she just goes there. And some of the comments she gets as well is hilarious. I think another podcast that sort of really stands out for me was Shane Evans. Now, this is a bit of a controversial one, not in a negative way. So I have known Shane outside of the podcast. Nice guy. He was involved in the Plunge comic book convention that they have on Bank Street during the first weekend of the school holidays in the middle of the year. And he was part of how Andrew, our producer Andrew, and I met. Because we were doing some filming that day. We were going to do some live stream interviews, but the live streaming part wasn't going to work, so we just sat down and did some informal interviews. Now, Shane is the polar opposite of Michael Bota. He is not very good at self-promotion. So for me, actually getting Shane in to come in and sit down and try and get some answers out of him, I'll be honest, Shane, if you're watching or listening, I was unsure as to how well it would go. But I'll tell you what, if you go back and you watch that podcast, we have the intro music, and then you have producer Andrew and I sitting down, and the first thing I say is, Shane can talk. And then Andrew says, Shane can ramble. Because, holy shit, who knew? He was so good. He was like the guest that surprised us the most. Like, whoa. And he's got such cool stories to tell as well, you know. The one I'm going to reference is when he's doing some painting down in Auckland, and you know he meets a young guy that is having some good days, and unfortunately he's addicted to, I think it was aerosols, and then Shane sees him again after having a bad day. Viewer discretion is advised. If anyone feels triggered or anything like this, we will put an ad for 1737 after this little clip. But this next clip is Shane talking about that time when he's painting in Auckland and the young gentleman that he encounters.
The most interesting one, though, I did was for a church just at the top of Queen Street. Like when you go up the bypass, not at the top, but the next to the...
Oh, so you're at the top of Queen Street, you go over and down, and then you come up to that next part
heading
again.
Up to like where the power station used to be and all that sort of stuff. There's a church there.
Yes, there is.
It was a church, a lot of Polynesian influences, a lot of everything really. But the church was also kind of a rehab centre.
Oh wow, okay.
So that was very interesting.
Nice.
I had to do a lot of landscapes again and stuff like that. And I also asked a lot of the people that went to the church about patterns for each of the columns.
Oh, okay, yeah,
so
cool.
I'd get their input to make sure I was getting it right, not offending anyone, making sure each culture had like one column each.
Yeah.
So that was quite cool. I learned a tiny bit, you know, which I all forgot by now, but but yeah, the talking to the priests and stuff up there, or fathers or whatever they'd be called at that church, was they'd seen some interesting stuff, and a lot of the people that were hanging around watching me paint were characters.
Yep.
Like I had to put the paint thinners away.
Oh, those characters.
I had to put the knives in my pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like there was I saw a guy punching a car one day.
Punching a car?
Yeah, the car was moving and he was trying to punch it.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, yep.
All right. Yeah, look, Auckland is certainly a weird and wonderful place.
Yeah, but that was a spot where they actually congregated.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So, yeah, you get some interesting, some real characters there.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Unfortunately, some of them were quite young, so that was quite...
Yeah, that's always a little bit heartbreaking.
Kind of sobering when you're sitting there in your 20s painting this thing and you're looking at a guy that's probably like 17 and you're just like, that guy's messed up. Like,
yeah.
He was a nice guy when he was sober. This one guy would talk to me every day. Awesome guy.
Yeah.
But a couple of days when he showed up like glue and stuff there.
Oh, yeah.
Nasty.
Yeah.
Nasty character when he was like that.
Just from huffing, right? Yeah. Northland Artists Conversation proudly supports 1737. 1737 are a free service that you can contact either via phone or text message. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On their website, 1737.org.nz, they say, are you feeling stressed or just need to talk to someone? Are you feeling down or a bit overwhelmed? Do you know someone who is feeling out of sorts? Whatever it is, they're there for you. Free call or free text, anytime, 24 hours a day. And you'll get to talk with a trained counsellor or talk with a peer support worker. Their service is completely free. They offer brief one-on-one counselling support sessions for those people that need it a little bit more than normal. Please do not be afraid to reach out if you need support or if you know someone else that needs support as well. 1737 are a fantastic service, and we here at the Northland Artists Conversation are very, very proud to support what they do. 1737, free text or free call. I think the last person I want to talk about is Ryan Behere. Behere. Ryan Berry, producer Andrew is he added a juice, just edited it, and he's correcting me, so that's fine. Ryan Berry. It's funny how I met Ryan was privately, and as soon as I found out who he was, I remember getting home, jumping on Google, and was like, holy shit, he's that guy. And he used to be in a electronic band called Minwee. And he toured the world. Absolutely toured the world. And, he left that lifestyle behind. And, originally Whangarei boy, moved to Nelson, got internationally famous, moved back to Whangarei. It's the story in a nutshell. But to be able to get someone of that caliber in was one of those moments where it's a huge get for us. And it was super cool. And, he's the most recent podcast. Just amazing. So, the clip I'm going to get played is the part where he's talking about how he's in, I think it's Ireland, and his gear's not working. And the good old Kiwi number 8 wire duct tape will fix it. She'll be right. Story is amazing because it's really much the life of an artist. You just make shit up as you go. So check this clip out. Were there any? I mean, I played a few shows where they're not train wrecks, but where you're like, it's probably not our best one. Do you have many of those nights?
Yeah. Hopefully not many, but they happened.
They do.
Yeah.
Gear breaks down.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember getting into the back of the sampler with a knife, a butter knife that the venue, that was the sharpest thing we had, or closest thing to a screwdriver we could do to get in, and somehow I fixed it. I don't know what. I just remember the knife and the sampler wasn't working, and just crazy, man. But yeah.
Wow. So was this during a show as well?
Oh, it was just before. I think before the sound check, something had happened. It was like, we've got to play. Sampler's not working. I think I know what it is. I just need to get in there, and stuff like that.
So there we have it. It's not everyone. We've done 27 podcasts. This one will be the 28th. So if I've missed anyone, please don't think that we haven't been entertained. Those are just some of the artists that I guess us as a collective, the team of the Northland Artists Conversation have just kind of stood out for us, all for different reasons, very, very different reasons. But that's been 2022 year in review, which is amazing. Who have we got coming up in 2023? Well, our first guest will be Sophie Sparrow. Now, we filmed Sophie kind of the start of December, and that's a funny story. So we filmed her on a Monday, and then on the Thursday she had emailed us saying, "Hey, small chance, but I'm going to try. I've got a concert this week, and I need to film it, and I need to record the audio. Is there any chance you guys can help me out?" And I just remember giving her a call and saying, "Yep," and that was it. I just said yeah, and that was held at the Whangarei Anglican Church, and that was I'll share this with everyone because it was super crazy. I finished work at 5, I went home, got changed, got the gear, went to the church, set it all up, got all the levels in the photography just the way I wanted it, went back home, had a shower, got changed again, picked up my colleague, went to dinner, because we had our work dinner that night, finished the work dinner, went and grabbed all the gear from Sophie, said da-da-da-da-da-da, we'll get everything to you as quick as we can, picked up my son, and then came back home. That was in 5 hours. Hell of a night. absolutely hell of a night. But Sophie will be a great podcast to sort of break in 2023. And who else have we got coming up? Oh, Tim Bell from Bell Tech. Now, everyone we've had so far has been an artist like in front of the camera, or they've been predominant in one way or another. You know, like they're an artist creating. Tim is behind the scenes. Tim's podcast will be in January. I think he is. So I think we've got Sophie. I think the next one is Cecilia De Donatis, and then I think we've got Tim. So, yeah. How can I describe Tim Bell's podcast? Producer Andrew is writing a word on the board, and it seems very applicable. Producer Andrew has written inappropriate. Look, it's with Tim, he was such a funny guy, and if I could start up just an audio only podcast, it was going to be R18 and was just no holds barred, and it was just, we would just say shit off the top of our head. He would be the guy I would do it with, which would be incredibly dangerous because him and I would just bounce off each other and it would just go into very weird places so quickly. Tim was that podcast. So producer Andrew's going to interject it. Tim was that podcast that we film in 20 to 25 minute blocks. Tim was good for about the first 15 minutes. Yeah. For the last 10 minutes, I had to try to not lose the plot completely and keep pissing myself with laughter. There's going to be footage that we're not going to insert it. We're not going to insert it. You can watch it. You can watch the podcast, but you will actually hear me go like that a lot because I'm struggling to hold the laughter. And it's so funny because it's like, Tim, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. It's great to be here. And he just says the most obscure, weirdest thing possible. And it's like, oh, shit. And we're off to the races. And it just goes there. It just goes into some really weird places. But honestly, he's genuinely one of the funniest guys we've talked with. And he wasn't even funny as in like comedian funny. He was just naturally inappropriate. Wildly inappropriate. And he will be in a good way, not where he's talking about things that he shouldn't be talking about, you know, but stuff that is just, yeah, you can see him almost metaphorically lifting his skull off and just his brain just pouring out. Like, the easiest way I can describe it is we think something, and then there's a gateway, it's a filter, and then that comes out. Right, so we might think something, but we can't say it. So we filter it and we reframe it, it might reword it, and then it will come out. Tim, it just goes from here to here. There's no gateway. Not a lot of gateway there. So if you are okay with some inappropriate jokes and comments and humour, you guys are just going to have an absolute blast. Where are you going to find all of this? Man, as I said at the start, YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Facebook, please make sure that you follow us as well. It's hugely important. And on podcast platforms, wherever you subscribe, please make sure that we're one of the podcasts that you subscribe to. I will do now what producer Andrew normally does. Big deep breath for the end of 2022. Here we go. For visuals, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, on YouTube, Northland Artists Conversation. For audio, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts at Northland Artists Conversation. It's actually Conversation. I think I forgot to add the conversation part at the video one as well. I did. Whoops. Anyway, who cares? Screw it. We're moving on. And if you're an artist and you want to be involved in this, or if you know someone that you think would be really, really cool, man, we would just love to hear from you. Please feel free to email us. hello@northlandartistsconversation.co.nz. And if you want to support the podcast a little bit more, we also have a Patreon page. That's where you can support us financially a little bit each month. We have 2 tiers. First tier is $5, cup of coffee. It's not that much. It's $5 a month. Second tier we have is Coffee Addict, and you get to find out who is coming up, and you also get a shout out. So I'm going to give a shout out to our 2 patrons at the moment, Michael Boda and Lauren Roach. Super cool guys. And that Coffee Addict is $20 a month. So it's actually still really, really cheap. And, you're getting quality local homegrown content as well. Where can you ask for that? You can't. We deliver it. So it's a great way for everyone to kind of get to know the local creative talent that we have in the region. It's an amazing project, and I'm super blessed to have been a part of it, which is weird. I'm the face and the voice that people see and hear, but I'm nothing without my team. So thank you very much again, producer Andrew, editor Rocky, Marino Bigman, who does communications, and Kat Tasker, who does the social media wizardry. I'm going to throw whoosh to the wide. My name is Mark Kelly. Guys, 2022. It's been a hell of a year. It's been a hell of a year for us too here at the Northland Artists Conversation. Onwards and upwards, I say. Make sure you tune in, stick around, find out who we've got coming out. I promise you, it's going to be amazing. We are in the process of trying to line up some incredible guests. We will keep delivering if you guys keep watching. Like, share, subscribe. Check us out. Mark Kelly, Andrew McKenzie normally sits there. Thanks very much for watching the Northland Artists Conversation, and we will see you guys in the new year.